Okay, so this is the editorial viewpoint that I and Janelle has written to accompany the six papers published in the special issue. So I'll start with a little bit of the history of the special issue. So I was invited by the journal to guest edit a special issue on social entrepreneurship. And we all know that context has been treated as a nice to know variable in the scholarship, right, in the SE scholarship. And if you read any journal papers, context is just something mentioned cursorily or at the marginal in the introduction, in the abstract, or in the methodology, but it has never been taken so seriously, especially if you look at a number of many papers that have been published on social entrepreneurship, social enterprise, social business, social venture. A lot of it treats as if social entrepreneurship is a homogeneous thing, a homogeneous object, as if there's no differences between those that operate in different sector by people from different countries, for different reasons, using different models, as if they're treated as the same. So we personally take context very seriously as a very important sort of variable, if you like, in research. And we also observe that the majority of the social entrepreneurship research lack the viewpoints, models, policies from Asia, Africa, Latin America, etc. And we all know that the majority of this literature has been dominated by theoretical perspectives and data from particularly North America and Europe, in particular UK and some parts in Europe like Italy and Belgium and Netherlands. So as part of this special issue to build up a team, and we all know that Janelle is a natural partner to work together, and she has done a lot of work on the historical institutionalism in social entrepreneurship. And this built on her work in nonprofit management. So she was originally in the field of nonprofit because she's based in the Department of Public Policy in Georgia State. So for the special issue, we received 33 submissions from around 15 countries/territories, and we have 6 finally accepted paper which will be presented today. So in the paper, this is the editorial viewpoint. In the paper, we talk about what is context. There are many ways to talk about context. One of it is to look at context as association of things. For example, you see a homeless person on the street. A person can be homeless for all kinds of reasons that you can connect it with the context. Is it about the family context of this person? Is it about the role of the state and the welfare? Is it about the role of the town? Is it about the role of the community? Is it about the role of human relations? So context is association of things. And one of the things that we can learn from linguistics is the role of context. For example, one of the interesting things from linguistics methodology, which I also use personally, is to look at the association of words. For example, the word crisis, if you are able to gather a huge amount of corpus of media data about the word crisis often appear with particular words like financial crisis, or global crisis. So there are always, contexts are always a thing of great interest to linguistics and for linguists. And it's a very useful thing for us to learn. And then in the paper, we try to philosophize about context. We draw on ontology. Ontology is about, whether things exist or you don't, it doesn't exist, and you actually see that it's being constructed by people. And we also talk about epistemology, whether a context is something that is objective or subjective. And we also talk about the methodological viewpoint about context, whether it can be studied using a process-driven, qualitative, or it's more outcome-driven or qualitative or experimental type of work. And we also try to highlight that context is central to both scholars who are working in the interpretivist sort of paradigm or tradition, but also by scholars from a more positivist tradition, like the use of mediator, moderator. Those are actually a form of context in how a theory tester is looking at context, while for interpretivist, context is typically related to the particular person, the particular time, the particular space and location where an event is being studied. And more importantly, we try to argue that context is actually a petri dish. It's like if you're in the lab, you can study something in that particular small piece of sort of container to understand what's going on. And that's why context is also a boundary condition to understand a particular phenomena. And then the key part of this editorial is we're trying to propose a typology of 10 different types of contexts for us in research. And actually, this is actually will be very helpful and useful for scholars. For example, a number of my work is related to the crisis of disaster and conflict. For example, I look at the role of social entrepreneurship in tackling terrorism. So there was one former sort of terrorist from Indonesia who had a particular sort of trajectory in life, and he became a normal person. He regained normality, and then he tried to help other terrorists by setting up a social enterprise, actually a restaurant, a work integration social enterprise. And then they send their people to go to the prison to talk to terrorists before these terrorists are being released. I also have a paper recently looking at a huge typhoon that happened in 2003 in the Philippines that wiped out the entire towns and killed tens of thousands of people. But there are also other parts that we can look at. Spatial and temporal are the most common type of context when people talk about social entrepreneurship. You talk about rural, urban distinction, developing, developed countries. Is it the governance, like new public management or new public governance? There are also things about the tradition, and there's a number of papers in this that look at indigenous community, like those in Canada, the Aborigines in Australia, the Balinese, and the Dayaks in Borneo, in Malaysia, in Indonesia, and some long-held tradition, some of which is related to what we're going to talk about in the following presentations. And also the human life cycle. We're talking about social entrepreneur from the perspective of the youth, which is actually one of the paper in the special issue, or from the perspective of people like the retirees, or for people who transition, who used to be very poor, and then they are now middle class, or from people who used to be excluded, and now they're included in the society. So this is one of the ways. Gender, we have seen quite a few papers published on the role of women in social entrepreneurship. But what about transgender, LGBT? A lot of these people are actually being involved in social entrepreneurship. So sort of sexuality or gender. The other part, which is quite exciting, and I've been in the process of working on this as well, is the religiosity and spirituality. For example, we all know that a lot of the reasons of the deep values behind what social entrepreneurs do is because of some of these spiritual beliefs. So this could be a very fruitful way. And stakeholder, a lot of the social entrepreneurs research look at the beneficiaries, but few have looked at the investors, the crowd funders, or the consumers. Right? The field of work. Actually, the majority of the social entrepreneurship papers published today do not quite make a distinction about the particular area. Together with some colleagues, for example, some scholars are looking at healthcare social enterprises. They look at environmental social enterprises. They look at social enterprises that tackles disability or aging. So these are specific contexts because the way that they work and what they do is very different from one another across. Although they are all social enterprises, but the different types of fields of work carry some nuances and important areas that could make new contributions to our knowledge. And also the sphere of action. Most of the social entrepreneurship work have focused on the offline or sort of face-to-face and brick and mortar sort of context, but there are others that are in the digital form, particularly after the COVID-19 pandemic, right? And we talk about startup versus growth. Also, there are those who are mature and bankrupt. Some of them are closed down. So these are the sphere of action. And also like disciplinary origin. We all know that social entrepreneurship has captured the interest of many scholars from different fields. people from social work, social policy, law. For example, we have Meng Ye, who has a law background in today's presentation, from sustainability, etc.